There is a moment when something stops fitting, and most people miss it. If you've been feeling disconnected without knowing why, stay with this until the end. Most people believe growth announces itself clearly. They expect a decision, a breaking point, or an emotional reaction that confirms change. But real growth is often quiet. It happens while you are still showing up, still participating, still trying to care. One day you simply notice that your energy no longer responds the same way. Not because you failed, but because something inside you has already moved beyond what your life is still asking you to maintain. This shift rarely feels dramatic. There is no collapse, no clear reason to leave. Instead, a subtle distance forms between you and what once felt natural. Conversations feel repetitive, routines feel heavier, goals feel strangely hollow. You may try to re-engage, believing effort will restore meaning, but effort cannot revive alignment. When something has been outgrown internally, forcing yourself to fit again only creates quiet resistance that drains you over time. Outgrowing something does not mean it was wrong or wasted. It means it completed its purpose. Many people mistake this completion for boredom or ingratitude and try to correct it. But what you are feeling is not lack of appreciation. It is closure arriving internally. Your system is no longer receiving nourishment from the same source. Staying out of obligation may look stable on the surface, but internally it creates friction that slowly disconnects you from yourself. Because this transition is subtle, many people turn against themselves. They assume they are unmotivated, distracted, or broken. But what feels like loss of drive is often loss of alignment. Your energy is not disappearing. It is withdrawing from structures that no longer reflect who you are becoming. This withdrawal is protective. It prevents you from investing deeply in directions that would require you to shrink again just to belong. When you outgrow something, the body often recognizes it before the mind accepts it. You may feel tension, fatigue, or a quiet resistance when returning to certain spaces or roles. This is not laziness or avoidance. It is feedback. Your system is signaling that continuing in the same way would require self-betrayal. Listening to this signal does not mean acting immediately. It means acknowledging that an internal shift has already taken place, even if your external life has not yet caught up. This is why returning rarely restores peace. You are not going back to something familiar. You are returning as someone different. The environment did not change, but you did. What once felt supportive now feels restrictive. What once felt meaningful now feels performative. This contrast creates discomfort, not because the situation became wrong, but because your internal capacity expanded. You may try to rationalize this feeling, searching for logical reasons to justify why it no longer fits. But growth does not always provide explanations on demand. It provides sensations first: a sense of tightness, a lack of resonance, an emotional flatness where engagement used to live. These signals are not asking you to analyze harder. They are asking you to listen differently. Alignment is felt, not proven. When something no longer aligns, no argument will make it nourishing again. One of the hardest parts of outgrowing something is that nothing external confirms it. There is no clear ending, no permission granted. From the outside, everything appears fine. This invisibility can make you doubt yourself, but inner shifts are rarely witnessed by others. They happen quietly, beneath routines and responsibilities. Just because no one else sees the change does not mean it is not real. It means the change is internal, and therefore deeply personal and non-negotiable. Because there is no external confirmation, many people delay honoring this shift. They wait for discomfort to become unbearable or for circumstances to force a change. But waiting does not restore alignment. It only deepens disconnection. The longer you ignore what no longer fits, the more energy you spend maintaining appearances. This maintenance is exhausting because it requires constant self-editing. Growth asks for honesty, not endurance. Outgrowing something often brings guilt. You may feel ungrateful for wanting distance from what once supported you. But gratitude does not require permanence. Appreciation does not mean obligation. You can honor what helped you grow without staying attached to it. This distinction is important. When you confuse gratitude with loyalty, you trap yourself in phases that already ended. Growth respects what was, but it does not sacrifice what is becoming just to preserve familiarity. As this realization settles, you may feel emotionally neutral rather than relieved. There is no excitement yet, no clear alternative pulling you forward. This neutrality can feel unsettling because it removes urgency. But neutrality is not emptiness. It is decompression. Your system is releasing identification with what no longer fits. Before new desire forms, space must exist. That space may feel quiet, even flat, but it is necessary. It allows your next direction to emerge. This neutral phase often tempts you to return, just to feel something familiar again. Familiarity can feel safer than openness, but returning now would not restore meaning. It would only delay clarity. The discomfort you feel is not a sign that you chose wrong. It is the sensation of standing between versions of yourself. One has finished its role. The other has not fully arrived. This in-between space feels unstable, but it is where recalibration completes itself. You may notice that your standards begin to change without conscious effort. What you once tolerated now feels heavy. What you once chased now feels unnecessary. This shift can feel isolating, especially if your environment has not changed alongside you. But isolation here is not punishment. It is differentiation. Your system is clarifying what resonates and what does not. This clarity cannot form while everything remains equally accessible. As discernment sharpens, some connections may naturally loosen, not because of conflict, but because the resonance is no longer mutual. This can feel uncomfortable if you equate growth with separation. But alignment is not about keeping everything intact. It is about allowing what no longer matches to fall away without blame. Letting distance form is not rejection. It is honesty. What truly belongs in your next phase will not require you to minimize yourself to maintain access. At this stage, trying to explain yourself to others may feel exhausting. Words seem insufficient to describe an internal change that has no visible cause. This is because growth does not require justification. Not everything that shifts inside you needs to be translated outward. The urge to explain often comes from seeking permission to evolve. But permission is not required. Silence here is not avoidance. It is self-trust forming. You might notice a desire to simplify your life during this phase. Less stimulation, fewer commitments, more space. This is not withdrawal from life, but refinement of it. Your system is shedding excess to make room for what actually resonates. Simplification is often a sign of maturation, not loss. When you stop forcing engagement with what no longer fits, your energy naturally conserves itself. That conservation is what prepares you to recognize the next direction when it appears. This phase can feel lonely, even if you are surrounded by people. Loneliness here is not about lack of connection, but about mismatch. You are no longer oriented toward the same conversations, motivations, or rhythms. This does not mean you are disconnected from others. It means your inner orientation has shifted. Until your external life reorganizes around that shift, solitude will feel more present. That solitude is not abandonment, it is alignment forming before expression catches up. You may question whether staying in this quiet is productive. The mind wants measurable progress, visible results, but internal realignment does not produce immediate evidence. Its effects are subtle at first. Patience here is not passive, it is active trust. You are allowing the internal structure to reorganize before building on top of it again. Otherwise, what you build next will rest on outdated assumptions that no longer support who you are becoming. As this reorganization continues, old habits may lose their pull. Things you once did automatically now feel optional. This can feel disorienting because habits provide structure and identity. But losing attachment to them does not mean losing discipline. It means your actions are becoming more intentional. You are no longer moving from momentum alone. You are learning to pause before engaging, to choose rather than repeat. You may notice that your reactions slow down. Situations that once triggered urgency now feel less demanding. This is not apathy. It is regulation. Your nervous system is no longer operating from constant alert. As urgency fades, clarity gains space. Decisions stop feeling like emergencies and start feeling like choices. This shift can feel unfamiliar if you equated intensity with meaning. But calm is not indifference. It is stability returning after a period of internal expansion. During this stage, you may stop seeking validation for what you feel. The need to be understood begins to fade. This does not mean you stop caring about others. It means you stop outsourcing your inner authority. When growth stabilizes, it no longer needs witnesses. You trust what you sense without requiring agreement. This quiet confidence is subtle but powerful. It marks the point where your direction is guided internally rather than negotiated externally. You may realize that you no longer argue internally about staying or leaving. The debate fades, replaced by quiet knowing. This does not happen suddenly. It settles slowly as resistance dissolves. When something is truly outgrown, the question is no longer, should I? But why am I still holding this? This clarity is gentle, not dramatic. It does not demand immediate action. It simply removes confusion. From this point, movement becomes simpler because it is no longer fueled by conflict. What replaces confusion is not certainty about the future, but trust in your capacity to respond when it arrives. You stop needing guarantees. You start needing alignment. This shift changes how you relate to uncertainty. Instead of fearing it, you respect it as space. Space where new direction can form without pressure. You are no longer asking life to confirm every step in advance. You are learning to move from coherence rather than prediction. At this point, you may feel less urgency to define yourself. Labels, roles, and explanations lose importance. You are no longer trying to summarize who you are becoming. This openness can feel unfamiliar if identity once gave you security. But identity is meant to evolve. Releasing fixed definitions allows you to move with life rather than defend an image. You are not losing yourself here. You are creating flexibility, so your next expression can form without constraint or premature limitation. Eventually, you notice that peace does not come from returning or replacing what you outgrew. It comes from honoring the shift itself. This phase completes when you stop questioning the change and start trusting its timing. What comes next will not feel forced or dramatic. It will feel quietly appropriate. You will move not because you are escaping discomfort, but because alignment has made staying unnecessary. This is how growth integrates, not through urgency, but through calm readiness. If this resonated, comment "I outgrew it" and allow this phase to complete without rushing it.